This is Countdown to Economic Collapse, October 23rd, 2011. I'm David John Sponheim, running for president in 2012 under the banner of America's Third Party. Well, there's a lot to digest. This past week, Barack Obama announced ending the war in Iraq, essentially pulling out the remaining 40,000 troops by the end of the year. Other things happened as well. Muammar Gaddafi died. He was captured alive and then killed summarily. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But in the meantime, the stock market surged 267 points at the end of the week. This would appear to be a good thing, all of these events taking place this week, but the reality is Prime Minister Maliki is against it. Iraq is definitely against the pullout of troops. They only did it because there was an ultimatum that we were going to get immunity from prosecution. Otherwise, we were pulling out. Therefore, we pulled out because they wouldn't give us immunity from prosecution. So in other words, our country is engaged in some very nefarious things in countries like Iraq. We all know what happened with Blackwater when 17 people were killed and they bribed Iraqi officials and then got off the charges of murder. So this is a very important issue, and I must tell you that leaving Iraq so soon could be a mistake. John McCain believes that we need to stay and make sure that their troops are fully trained and maintain their training. So what Barack Obama is doing is catering to the left and engaging in a pullout which ultimately could endanger the lives of civilians in Iraq. We'll see what happens coming up this year. Now, as far as him going after Muammar Gaddafi with NATO troops, Barack Obama has essentially used a very, very dangerous military move to fund Al-Qaeda through the CIA. The rebel leader in Libya that took down Gaddafi is actually former Al-Qaeda. Now, if you can explain this to me, I would love to know the answers to that problem. You see, our country is funding anyone to break up these nations' governments. We are basically backing this Arab Spring, which Obama is pushing. Countries like Yemen, Sudan, Iran, Tunisia, Syria. President Assad has been actually holding on very, very closely to his power and authority in Syria, and we see possible problems in Pakistan now, where our country is essentially turning a blind eye to a potential ally in Pakistan, fighting the Taliban. So you see, Obama is completely fragmenting and sabotaging our foreign policy. And that's leading to a major flux within many, many countries, and they're asking, what's going on? Why is Obama this way? New York Times announced that Obama is incompetent. There are people within the Democratic Party wondering maybe Hillary Clinton should be put in charge. But yet, on all fronts, Obama appears to be some sort of a military commander. He actually sent 100 armed military personnel into the Central African area of the Congo. For what reason, we really don't know, other than to show his power as a military commander. You see, I'm a non-interventionist. I don't believe we should be out there running other countries, invading them, and telling them what to do. I think that Barack Obama is acting as a puppet for the IMF and the World Bank. And ironically, it's helping the stock market. Surges of 267 points this past week are a part of a major change in the nature of how the banks are being looked at. There recently was a thing called a DVA, which gave Morgan Stanley a $1.6 billion profit for the third quarter. The DVA is a debit valuation adjustment, and it gives greater assets to companies that are essentially taking on greater risk and potential losses. Morgan Stanley got that amount, and Bank of America got $2.6 billion in quarterly earnings as a result of this, like Citigroup as well, $1.9 billion profit for the third quarter. Citigroup did a reverse split on their stocks last May and brought their stock value to about $45 a stock or share, and now they're down to 28. Yet Citigroup is announcing profits. You see what's happening? They're manipulating every aspect of the stock market. In fact, this DVA gave the Standard & Poor's 500 a big boost of 13.8% earnings over last quarter for the third quarter, which would have really translated to about 11.6% earnings, only a 0.1% earning increase had the DVA not gone into effect. So this little trick that's going on is giving companies a big boost. Now Microsoft is another example where, if you can believe it, our country, which is facing a budgetary crisis, is giving Microsoft all kinds of sales again with the purchase of the Windows 7 operating system for all government agencies. So, as if XP didn't work well enough, we just infused a huge amount of capital into Microsoft, and they reported earning increases as well, even though it's very questionable as to whether Microsoft is doing better or not. But with an impulse and a boost of revenue from the government, we're seeing all of these companies do better as a result of it. Google, Facebook, all these companies are underwritten by government holdings. How and where is actually disguised through shell companies. So we don't really know exactly what the government is buying or selling. But the reality is they control the information stream in this country, which raises serious question marks about the freedom and democracy that our nation is proposing or supposedly involved in. We aren't really free. We're completely managed and controlled and manipulated. Our nation is actually under siege by elitists. What they're doing is essentially opening up immigration laws and letting people come in from various countries, getting visas, and it destabilizes our nation. This is also happening in the UK and other major Western world nations around the world. And this is a tactic that the elitists are using to fragment the nation-state model. Now, they're pushing a new world order, and that's not something to laugh about. These are the monarchs of the past 500 years that have realized they have to grab power before the end. So they've engaged in a very sick game of intimidation and manipulation of markets, using lawmakers and controlling Congress, the Supreme Court, and your president, Barack Obama. Now, what can you do to stop this? Well, you listen to people like Ron Paul and you think, wow, he's got a great idea. We should actually end the Fed. Well, we should end the Fed. It's exactly the problem. But Ron Paul is owned and operated by very high-paid, moneyed individuals who give him lots of donations. There's a reason why they chose Ron Paul, because he's the guy they're going to use to try to take down our dollar. Now, you hear him talking about H.R. 1098, which is supposedly going to create currencies in states and changes the nature of our dollar, backing it with gold. We can't afford to back it with gold. Our country has too many dollars in circulation right now to back it with gold. So Barack Obama and Ron Paul clearly are working for the same team. Barack Obama is supporting the IMF and the World Bank. They want to destroy our nation, lower us in national and international status, and use us all the while as a policeman around the world. Ron Paul wants to break down our dollar. So they're coming at us from both sides. And this creates a huge dilemma for the average American. And that's why we created America's Third Party, which you can access on a daily basis and actually talk and chat with me directly in our weekly, nightly show. So if you want to talk to us, just check us out. If you want to ask us specific questions and respond to these videos, simply go to our nightly blog show. I've been living in America all my life, of course. And I've seen changes occur, and I've seen this massive immigration flow coming into our country. I've seen our nation being used to fight wars, which we don't need to do. There's no reason why we need to fight wars that end like this, with countries barely able to secure their borders like Iraq or Afghanistan. We're in a situation where we do need to pull our troops back, but we also need to maintain the hard work that our troops have fought for. And I must remind you that Barack Obama did state in his primary in 2008 that the men had died in vain in Iraq. And he recanted that statement, but the reality is you've got a president that could care less about all the deaths of the men that have died overseas. And he just wants to kind of move forward with his political goal of creating an Arab Spring and in creating an ensuing environment for socialism or communism, or worse than that, a Muslim Brotherhood or jihad takeover of the Middle East. That's essentially what's been going on. Democracy is not going to return to these countries. Look at Egypt. 6 people just died in Cairo. They're just protesting in the same square that they protested under Mubarak and were allowed to protest freely under Mubarak. They're now getting killed and shot at by the military. You're not seeing democracy form. You are seeing mobocracy form. And that's essentially the environment for socialism and communism to take place, and worse, like I said, a complete fragmentation, anarchy, and then the emergence of a fundamentalist extremist sect of the Islamic faith to take over that region, forcing our nation into a very vulnerable position. We're going to see oil prices continue to decline, which is a good thing because of usage is down. But we're also going to see a possible tank in the stock market coming up, because I think what they're doing right now is luring people in toward the end of the year, thinking that there are many profits to be made in the stock market, and once they get them in, they'll hit you down real fast with a 500-point drop. You'll see that coming up in the near month. Now, gold and silver I still believe is a strong place to put your money, as long as you're buying the actual product. Don't buy paper shares of those items, or that's too risky. Margin loans are being given away, handed out. So we need more accountability from the SEC. That's Barack Obama's responsibility. We need to get our country back on track. I'm David John Sponheim for America's Third Party, and I support this message.
Check us out at americasthirdparty.com.
ATP, you and me.